Hello, how has your day been? I hope you're fine. I welcome you once again to another Language Smart class. Today we'll be looking at analogies. It might sound a little confusing, but in the course of this lesson, I think a few examples will make it easier for you to understand. So all I beg of you is to remain very calm, very attentive, and you grasp what the lesson is all about. So part of what we'll be learning today is the meaning of analogies. We'll also be looking at some common examples of analogies and how analogical words relate. So you could see it's a big package that we are going to learn today. Now to begin with, we want to look at the meaning of analogy. An analogy is a statement of a relationship. It shows how the relationship between two words is like the relationship of two other words. And what do I mean by this? An analogy tries to compare two things. Other times, it tries to contrast them. When I say compare, I mean to talk about the similarities, then contrast to talk about the differences. So that's what analogy does basically. So such statements that compare or contrast two things, especially two things that have some traits in common, or sometimes they may not even have traits in common, we refer to it as analogy. Consider the example of hot and cold. Hot and cold are actually opposite words. So in analogy, comparing hot and cold, we're trying to draw out the opposites, or what we call the contrast. So hot is to cold as stop is to go. Up is to down as inside is to, what do you say? Outside, not so? Okay. Now, here we're talking about opposites, relationship of opposites. Other times we could also have relationship in other ways. For example, if I have carrot is to vegetable as apple is to fruit. This time I'm not looking at relationship of opposites. I'm looking at relationship of types of food. Types of food. So this is how analogies, of course, work. Now we're making a little progress into analogies. You would ask me how analogical words are related. How are they related? Or to make it very simple for you, how do analogies work? Remember that I did talk about analogies as words that are related or connected in one way or the other. And I told you that there is a relationship between such words. So analogies try to show the connection between those two words or two things. Somehow, in doing so, it helps to explain their importance or make them clearer, especially by using a second thing, a second analogy, second words that could make them clearer. Now, should I be talking about fish and water? I could call them analogies because, of course, fish has some relationship with water. They are not the same, are they? They are not. But somehow the relationship is that you would definitely find fish in water. Fish lives in water. So they have become analogies. you could say the relationship is about habitat, where they live. Sometimes when there is a partial, not total agreement between two things that are not the same in other ways, we say such words are analogical. So should I have eyes, an object, see, a verb, an action? I could say that eyes are to see. They are analogical. Legs are to what? What would you say? Legs are to walk. So leg and objects found in the human body or in the body of other living things, of course, walk, which is an action legs take. Then in the second example there, I didn't supply the words. I want you to do a little thinking. Dash is to tough, as sit is to sat. Now what are you thinking right now? What are you thinking? I know you will get it, and we are just referring to think. Now think is to thought, as sit is to sat. Now what relationship are we trying to place here? We are simply looking at the relationship of time of action, tenses, if you like to put it that way. Okay? All right. So think in the present, thought in the past, sit in the present, and sat in the past. So sometimes it's not just about relationship of opposites. It could also be relationship of tenses, time of action, like we have seen in this example. Now we want to make progress this time to summarize what we have learned thus far. Now what have you learned? As for me, I have learned that an analogy shows how the relationship of two words resemble that of two other words. So the relationship between soldier and barracks is related to this relationship between lion and den. Soldiers, you find them at the barracks, and as for lion, they live in a den. So we have the relationship of beings and where they live. Analogical words have partial agreement, although they may not be the same. Remember, I explained this when I told you that sometimes analogical words may not be exactly related words as per opposites alone. Sometimes it could be two similar words that are in fact saying the same thing. But what do we stand to benefit from studying analogies, you would ask? First of all, it improves the way you read. Then again, it helps to boost your vocabulary skills. But then again, analogy is very important because it requires you to reason. And when you do so, it keeps developing your reasoning ability. So you see, analogy is such a beautiful topic to learn about. I would want you to ask me questions or tell me something very interesting that you have learned from this lesson using the notes section of this content page. Thank you. It's nice being with you. Bye.